Aloha, people from all places and races. We are here today for something I would like to call a Spark Talk. A small type of video in which we discuss certain topics that just pop into my head. And today we wanted to make something special in honor of Women's History Month. I know that I'm a tad bit late for this. International Women's Day was on March 8th. But I do believe there is never a late date to celebrate women as a whole. Also, I did manage to make something small for International Women's Day inside the Rabbids fandom, so don't worry about that. So yeah, we are doing something special, and we're gonna discuss about the lady behind the mayhem. I wonder what this is about. The soundtrack present in the many Rabbids games is a thing that isn't really discussed inside or outside of the Rabbids community. Sure, we always highlight the work of all the masters inside the Mario Bros. Rabbids titles, and no one can deny the iconicity of the Rabbids Go Home music. But outside of that, I don't think the Rabbids fandom or any gamer as a whole comments about the music of these games. Something that doesn't help is that Ubisoft really doesn't share info regarding these compositions. The soundtrack for many of the titles aren't present in the Ubisoft Music channel nor are available on streaming services like Deezer or SoundCloud. We are missing entire soundtracks from games like Rabbids Travel in Time, Rabbids Rumble, and the one that I genuinely want to know more, Rabbids Party of Legends, a game that not only has a soft spot in my heart but also some very lovely music. Even with all that, people around here have been able to enjoy these lovely tunes for a long time, and have learned to love and respect the effort and passion put into them. Not to mention that we were able to value the presence and existence of these lovely composers all throughout the history of the franchise. These being Mark Griskey, the very first Rabbids composer, with his work in the original Rayman Raving Rabbids trilogy being the foundation for everything that came afterwards. Fanfare Vagabontu, the stunning Romanian gypsy brass band who made the music for the beloved Rabbids Go Home game. Gareth Cooker, the mythical British composer known for his more epic and solemn works like the Ori games and Prince of Persia: The Last Crown. Yoko Shimomura, the gorgeous Japanese lady who captivated the world with her beautiful and stunning compositions in many beloved games like the Mario and Luigi saga. Christophe Heran, the French hero who was in charge of making the memorable soundtrack of the incredible Rayman UBR games. And of course, Grant Kirkhope, a brilliant man whose name is written in video game history books, a master whose music pieces are the perfect mix of silly and epic, a legend that has taken the world by storm for over 20 years and has been basically synonym with Rareware's best work. All these composers have left a mark in the most important titles in the Rabbids franchise, and people inside and outside of the Rabbids fandom have a soft spot for either them or their tracks. However, the list of these masterful music masters is incomplete, because there is someone who has made music for an entire trilogy of Rabbids games and beyond who doesn't seem to be all that discussed around here, and is kind of underrated when it comes to her craft. I think it's time for you to meet her. Jennifer Kes Remington is a composer for film, TV, and video games, as well as a filmmaker located in Los Angeles. She has been a classical pianist since the age of 7 and attended the prestigious Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. Jennifer worked for a short stint as a radio DJ before attending the University of Michigan's Music School in Ann Arbor. She is a 2-time Annie Award winner for her work on the animated TV series Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and won the Best Documentary Award for her movie she directed entitled Hollywood 9038 at the LA Film Festival in 2007. Her numerous and diverse projects include music written for the TV series The Powerpuff Girls, the film Scary Movie 4, and the video games Raving Rabbids Travel in Time, Raving Rabbids Alive and Kicking, and Rabbids Land. Hey, that info comes from the LinkedIn page. I'm just reading stuff as it is. As mentioned before, she was the composer of what I like to call the experimental trilogy of Rabbids party games, Trouble in Time, Alive and Kicking, and Land. These titles are actually known for being games that took the Rabbids series to a new generation and brought it to brand new horizons inside the party genre, up to the point that it consolidated the Rabbids IP as a big franchise. Okay, just the first two, not many folks like to talk about Land. Her work inside these games has an often quirky and funny vibe. It makes a childish essence with funky grooves, very fitting for the franchise at the time, and for the games they were made of. On top of that, each track perfectly encapsulates what the minigame you are playing is about. From swimming like wild salmon in a flooded city, flying through the streets of Italy with a phantom sun cardboard, to even preventing your butt to be on fire in a crazy roller coaster. It's what you would call smoke silly, but in a good way. Despite all the praises said here, why do I say that her work is underrated? Well, it's because it's often difficult to highlight her work for a pair of reasons. For starters, the franchise isn't really known for having names that represent some of their iconic aspects, unlike other sagas like Mario with Shigeru Miyamoto and Yoshiaki Koizumi, Sonic with Yuji Naka and Madeline Shredder, and even Rayman with Michel Ancel and Emile Morel. Heck, the Rabbids never really had a dad until Master Suriani came along. Okay, let's say that ain't the case and we're just being dim-witted here. Well, the thing is that her work isn't all that memorable, at least compared to everything else that came before and after. I mean, how does this stand against this? And how can this be put up against this? And even if we put her against the other women composer of the saga to make this fair, because I have internalized misogyny or whatever, how can this compared to this? I just want to remind you all that those were the very first songs that you hear in both games. It's not that she has done a bad job. Quite the opposite. She did things right. It's simply that the rest managed to make tracks that embrace more the spirit of the games and stand out more because of their distinct style. Even with everything that we just said, we do consider that Miss Jennifer's work should be remembered, and we'll explain why. Come with me. Okay, so I need you to listen to me. I want to show you something. This is a graph I've elaborated that explains the three distinct eras that the Rabbids franchise has. We got first the Rayman era, that obviously starts with Rayman Raving Rabbids, continues with 2, and ends with TV Party. And in this era we had Mark Griskey as the main composer. Then we move on to the experimental era, which includes Trouble in Time, Land, Alive and Kicking, and of course, Rabbids Go Home. Go Home was, as mentioned before, the music was composed by Fanfare Vagabontu, but all the other games that we mentioned were made by Jennifer Remington. And then we move on to the Snowdrop era, which includes the Mario + Rabbids titles, Party of Legends, and Legends of the Multiverse. And this era is known because it has the most composers, which are Grant Kirkhope, Yoko Shimomura, Gareth Cooker, and Christopher Herrad. Now, I want you to notice something. So, Kirkhope worked on two of the games, and those were in 2017 and 2022, and also including DLCs from 2023 and 2018, the Donkey Kong and Rayman DLCs for the both Mario Bros. Rabbids titles. And that also means that Shimomura and Gareth Cooker all worked only in the 2022 game Sparks of Hope. This also applies for Christopher Herald, who only worked on the 2023 expansion, in this case of Rayman for Sparks of Hope, meaning they basically only have one project where they work inside the franchise. Now, in the case of Mark Griskey in the Rayman era, he made all the three mainline games, the music for the three mainline games, 1, 2, and 3, and TV Party. This was the early beginnings of the franchise. And now we got the experimental era, which, as mentioned before, Fanfare Vagabontu made the soundtrack of Go Home, but that was their only contribution. And, well, Jennifer Kes Remington made the soundtrack for all the other games that formed part of the experimental minigame trilogy, Land, Alive and Kicking, and Trouble in Time. And not to mention that her music was further utilized in other titles that don't really form part of this era, like Big Bang and Episodes. I put this date specifically because remember that 2009 was the release of Go Home and 2014 was the release of an interactive TV show. We're only taking into account the mainline console games. And even if we take into account the mobile games, this point would still stand. Where do I want to head with all this? That Jennifer Kes Remington has stayed the longest with the franchise. She has around 3 games where she composed the entire soundtrack and her music was utilized in further titles, even if it's more reused or remixed. Not to mention that her music was also utilized in the Snowdrop era, even though Rabbids coding doesn't count as part of the Snowdrop era, her music was used there too. What am I trying to get with this? Jennifer Kes Remington has stayed with the franchise the most out of all these people. You see it now, fellas? Despite not being what you would call the best, she is someone who has stayed with this franchise for a very, very long time. Her tracks have kept this franchise moving in that very experimental era and have remained present in the franchise ever since. In smaller projects of the saga, but still noteworthy. And even if she isn't the best, she has achieved so many great things over the years that she shouldn't be happy about them. We should be happy about it. We got in this franchise a 2-time Annie Award winner for Outstanding Individual Achievement for Music in a Television Production, who also just happens to be a great director, producer, and editor. I don't think any other gaming franchise can have someone like her. If that isn't impressive, then I don't know what it is. We are just happy to have her in our lives. Knowing that someone so strong and unique forms part of this incredible franchise fills me with joy and makes me thankful that a saga that has her as a composer is one with the most incredible, caring, and of course, female-driven fandoms the world has ever seen. We can't wait to see what else she decides to do from now on, because I'm anxious to see what she does next in the near and far future. And I'll say one final thing. I do believe that she can rightfully return to the franchise someday. I don't think the current games may fit her style, but hey, nobody said that she has to limit herself to the games. We could see her in a brand new series of YouTube shorts, maybe in some special videos for the 20th anniversary, or maybe even the Rabbids movie. Wouldn't that be nice? And remember, folks, behind every great franchise, there is a great woman. I'll see you around, folks. And have a happy Women's History Month. Chaito! Man, I'm surprised somebody is touching on this topic of the updated renders. I knew about this for a long time now. Let me see. I gotta check this out. I remember I had the page around here somewhere. Let's see. Here it is. Okay, who made this again? I forgot the name. Wait a minute. These were made by women? We're making a sequel, folks!